Dear friends, you're watching Ruslan Belov's channel, and today we'll discuss the situation in Ukraine as of June 12, 2025. A lot has happened over the past day, so let's get started. Let's move to the line of contact, beginning with the northern sectors of the front. We'll start with the Sumy direction. The armed forces of the Russian Federation continue advancing toward the regional capital, the city of Sumy. However, several minor adjustments on the map have been noted over the past 24 hours. While small, they are present. Today, the most dynamic activity is shown by the Sever, north grouping, which is responsible for the advance toward the settlements of Kostyantynivka and Pisarevka. Ukrainian sources published these objective control footage today. Here we can observe artillery and FPV drone strikes on Russian armed forces positions along the line between the settlements of Kondrashevka, Andreevka and Alexeyevka. This is a large video, from which 4 episodes were extracted and geolocated along this line. Based on this footage, we conclude that Russian units are continuing to advance toward Pisarevka and Kotin. However, it's worth noting that these territories were already marked as contested as of yesterday. There had already been publications by various mappers and experts indicating a Russian advance in this area. Today, this information was simply confirmed. No additional advances have been recorded in this area. A similar situation is observed in the central and eastern directions. Despite statements from various experts and cartographers about the complete clearing of the settlements of Vorochiny and Novomikhailovka, we have yet to receive any objective control footage to confirm this. The situation in Yunakhivka is also similar. Moreover, today some pro-Ukrainian experts who are familiar with the ground situation report that Ukrainian forces managed to push Russian units out of the northern part. Currently, Russia controls the perimeter of Yunakhivka and is attempting to advance along the eastern flank to encircle the settlement through the village of Sadki and reach the southern and southwestern outskirts. Essentially, the village is being surrounded. Russia has decided not to storm the village head-on. In any case, we are now witnessing a significant slowdown in the pace of the offensive in the Sumy direction. This is clearly a reversal from the situation we saw last week and the week before, when the map was changing significantly every day. It's currently hard to say whether the Russian army is regrouping, bringing in reinforcements for a new offensive, or has decided to wrap up the battle for Yunakhivka before planning further action. This is not the first time we've seen such a development in the northern directions. A similar situation occurred in the Vovchansk area last summer, when the Russian army initially advanced rapidly, capturing several villages and even entering Vovchansk itself. However, over time, the pace of the offensive slowed down significantly and eventually came to a halt. Right now, we are seeing a picture almost identical to what we observed exactly a year ago, practically unchanged. It's possible that the Russian army will resume its offensive in the Kharkiv sector in the near future. But as for the past 24 hours, no new information has emerged regarding that direction. Now let's move on to the Kupiansk sector. Today, pro-Ukrainian cartographers from the Deep State team confirmed Russian advances and expansion of control near the settlement of Dvorichna. They even published a separate article about this area. Ukrainian sources report that the Russian army is mainly using infantry and a massive number of drones in this sector, gradually pushing westward. There have been small adjustments just west of Dvorichna. 2 small areas have been marked as contested by pro-Ukrainian cartographers based on map updates. Next, we move slightly south to the Borova direction. Today there's a small adjustment here as well, but this time in favor of the Ukrainian armed forces. This is a notable correction on the map. This information was first confirmed early this morning by neutral cartographers, and later pro-Russian sources published this objective control footage. Here, we can observe strikes on Ukrainian positions along a strong point visible on the map. Based on this footage, many reliable pro-Russian experts made corresponding map updates, which we also reflected. Let's see how the map changed over the past day. This was the situation as of the evening of June 11, 2025. Today, new objective control footage confirms that Ukrainian forces control these forest belts and strongpoints. It's hard to say exactly when these Ukrainian counterattacks occurred. Still, a few days ago, the Ukrainian military and possibly the Kharkiv Regional Administration, or Kupiansk district, announced evacuations from these areas. Settlements such as Baranov, Spodobovka, and Fedorivka have either been fully evacuated or are undergoing rapid evacuation. Let me also remind you that we've previously discussed the possibility that Russian forces might attempt to cross the Sienkov River from the direction of Krugliakivka to advance along the R79 highway northward, aiming to encircle Kupiansk. However, it now appears that over the past few weeks, Ukrainian forces have conducted several successful counterattacks near Krugliakivka and Zarizove. As a result, the Russian plans to cross the Oskil River seem to have been abandoned, and there may even be the risk of Russian units being surrounded along the Oskil River bridgehead. Therefore, it seems likely that further offensive plans toward Kupiansk, at least the pincer movement from north and south, will be delayed. For now, Russia will likely focus on regaining control of lost territory between Lozova, Bohuslavka, and Zarizove. We are talking about a network of strongpoints in this area. Now we move on to the Kostyantynivka sector, where dozens of geolocations and videos are received daily. We're seeing a high concentration of drone strikes on the western, central, and eastern flanks. Let's go through everything step by step, beginning with the Siverskaya Donetsk-Donbass Canal. Over the past few days, Russia has been actively advancing in this area. Just yesterday, we discussed a video showing Russian assault troops moving through forest belts and Ukrainian strongpoints toward the Siversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal from the direction of Druzhba. Based on that footage, we made the following map updates. Some pro-Russian mappers even fully painted over the pocket in favor of the Russian armed forces. Today we received new information confirming an expansion of Russian control west of Kupiansk on the Ukrainian side of the canal. We made this conclusion based on footage published by the Ukrainian side, showing FPV drone strikes on Russian positions, vehicles, and personnel in that area. Based on this footage, we made corresponding map updates. It is now clear that the Russian objective here is to align the front line between the settlements of Klishchivka, Andriivka, the Siversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal, northern Delivka, Kupiansk, and Zelenopilia. This pocket is the current focus. If it is cleared, Russian forces could stabilize the front line, free up additional troops, and continue their advance northwest toward Bilahora and Oleksandr Shultina. Next, we move to the Klishchivka-Kleban-Byk pocket, which appears to be gradually forming. Today brought a large number of geolocations and FPV drone strike videos, especially from the settlement of Kateryniivka. When we look at the eastern flank of the Kleban-Byk pocket, most of the footage is coming from that area, showing FPV drone strikes on northern Sherbinivka, key evacuation routes, and the settlements of Kateryniivka and Kleban-Byk. Over the past week and the one before that, the Russian army has been pushing in the northwestern part of Toretsk. Recent assaults have allowed Russian units to establish themselves in strongpoints directly across from the Kleban-Byk reservoir and the T0516 road. Currently, active fighting is ongoing for a strongpoint along that road. If Russian forces secure these trenches and positions, they'll be able to move very close to the Kleban-Byk reservoir and effectively cut off the T0522 road between Sherbinivka and Kostyantynivka. This would effectively seal the northeastern lid of the pocket. Today we are receiving very interesting updates from the area between Oleksandr Kalinove, Romanivka, and Kateryniivka. Today, a number of pro-Russian cartographers are making corresponding map updates in this territory, and according to pro-Russian experts, the Russian armed forces from the area of Romanivka have managed to break through Ukrainian defenses and advance significantly to the northeast. In fact, if we summarize all the news published today from this sector, Russian units are already operating in this territory. This is a powerful advance and a serious map update, because the distance from the possible forward positions of the Russian armed forces to Highway 05-24 is now no more than 2 kilometers. Essentially, Kateryniivka, Kleban-Byk, Sherbinivka, Novospaska is being encircled. Currently, moving safely during daytime between Kleban-Byk, in general between the eastern flank of the Kleban-Byk pocket, and Kostyantynivka is virtually impossible. It's maximally unsafe and unfeasible. It seems Ukraine still has the option to move along the canal, forest belts, and wooded areas. Most likely this is the only relatively safe route for evacuation, rotation, and resupply. But it's being used in a very inefficient and inconvenient manner, as the terrain is unsuitable for traffic. they are forced to use highways H20, 0524, and 0522, all of which are now under dense fire control by FPV drones. The Russian army continues advancing from Romanivka northward toward Highway 05-24 and from Toretsk toward the strongpoint along T05-16. Then in the next few days, a definitive encirclement of Ukrainian units still in Klebanbaik, Katerinivka, Novospaska, and Sherbinivka may be formed. Based on recent Ukrainian experiences, there is a very high probability that within the next 24 to 72 hours, Ukrainian forces will begin to withdraw from this direction. On the Western Front, fighting continues for the central part of Yablunivka, but over the past few days, we've seen almost no news of further Russian advances into the village center. It appears Ukrainian forces are offering fierce resistance here. However, activity and intensity of Russian artillery and FPV drone strikes have increased in the area between Rusin Yar, Stepanivka, and Dolhabalka. We see a high concentration of strikes and objective control footage showing Ukrainian soldiers under fire from Russian artillery, mortars, and FPV drones. Equipment is being destroyed, with many vehicles taken out by drones. Overall, this concentration of strikes may indicate that the Russian army is preparing to either strike or probe Ukrainian defenses along the Novolanivka-Rusin Yar line, pushing further northeast toward Dolhabalka. A successful advance here could lead to a complete collapse of Ukrainian defenses on the western, southwestern, and southern flanks of the Kostyantynivka agglomeration. We'll be monitoring this sector. New developments may arrive soon. Next, onto the Pokrovsk agglomeration. The biggest news today comes from the village of Myrna. Pro-Russian sources are sharing footage showing a Ukrainian drone being destroyed in Myrna with explosives taken out a Baba Yaga drone. The next shots show 2 Russian soldiers raising a flag in the center of Myrna. Experts have geolocated the video, and according to them, Russian flags were raised at that location. Based on this, a small map update has marked the village center. Some pro-Russian experts have fully marked Myrna as under Russian armed forces control, meaning that by the end of June 12, 2025, the entire village may have fallen under Russian control. The broader picture, the Russian army is actively advancing via Mirolyubivka toward Mykolaiivka. We see them pushing from Malinivka through Mirny toward Novoekonomikna. Also, over the past days we've received multiple reports of clearing in the village of Koptyeva. Overall, the offensive toward Novoekonomikna is very intense. If Russian forces manage to break through Ukrainian defenses and enter that settlement, it could mean a full-scale assault on the Pokrovsk agglomeration, with likely severe outcomes for Ukrainian units in the area. Moving to the southern Donetsk and Dnipropetrovsk sectors, today brings the largest volume of geolocation data, as has been the case in recent days. The primary cluster is the pocket between Alexievka, Zelenyi Kut, Nova Ukrainka, Horokovo, and Troitske. Today, the Russian Ministry of Defense confirmed that troops of the center grouping have taken full control of Horokovo and Alexievka. Based on those reports, we've updated our maps. Let me remind you that just yesterday, the Russian Ministry of Defense said that forces of the east and center groupings had expanded their presence into Dnipropetrovsk region. We updated the map accordingly yesterday. Today, the ministry reported further Russian advances. The most interesting developments concern Alexievka, Nova Ukrainka, and Zelenyi Kut. If you compare maps from different cartographers, each one is showing different lines for this sector. The debate centers on a video published by elements of the Russian 114th Brigade. In it, we can see the battle for Alexievka, Russian soldiers of the 114th Brigade breaking through Ukrainian positions, and finally raising the flag at a specific point. The key detail is that the flag was raised by units of the 114th Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces. And notably, yesterday the Russian MOD said that the East grouping had reached the border of Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, crossed it, and begun consolidation there. It appears that the East grouping is operating on the southern flank near the Volchya River. The 114th Brigade operates under center and may have partially entered East's zone to outflank the Volchya and plant the Russian flag behind Nova Ukrainka. Some cartographers, respecting boundary lines, conclude the 114th advanced west through Zelenyi Kut and Nova Ukrainka, reaching the flag rally point via a northern route. These cartographers have mapped not only Alexievka and the river crossing west of Nova Ukrainka, but also Nova Ukrainka and Zeleny Kut as Russian-controlled. Others still hold the small pocket between Nova Ukrainka and Zeleny Kut under Ukrainian control. The reality is, with the loss of Horokhovo, the fall of Alexievka, and the presence of Russian units behind the Ukrainian group's rear lines, the situation is extremely critical for those Ukrainian units. Currently, the forward distance from Horokhovo to the flag rally point is just under 8 kilometers, and this zone is densely covered by Russian FPV drones. For example, objective control footage shows an attempt by Ukrainian forces during the daytime to escape the forming encirclement toward Kyiv, but they were struck as soon as they emerged. Multiple drone strikes hit them simultaneously. Yesterday's events brought even more drone strikes from these fields. Now passing through this terrain is nearly impossible, until Russian units crossed the Volchya River west of Nova Ukrainka. Now it is clearly an encirclement. Within the next 24 hours, Ukrainian units may withdraw via Novopavlivka, or they will be unable to. At the very least, within 3 to 4 days, exiting will be nearly impossible, and casualties may reach 80 to 90%. Further west, the assault and pressure toward Komar continues. Today, map updates show that some cartographers, including neutral and pro-Russian ones, have fully marked the eastern advance on Komar from the southeast, south, and northeast. We see intense artillery and FPV drone operations targeting Zaporizhzhia. Objective footage indicates that Ukrainian artillery positions around Zaporizhzhia are coming under fire. There is heavy drone and artillery activity. There is a high likelihood that, even before fully capturing Komar, the Russian army will begin a northwest push toward the southern outskirts of settlements like Zaporizhzhia, Yalta, and Zorko. We should expect a large-scale Russian offensive here soon. Additionally, we're increasingly receiving geolocation and objective control footage from the west and northwest of Velika Novosilka and Volnopol. Russian drones are active in these areas, and this trend has persisted for several days. It appears Russia is preparing staging areas ahead of a renewed offensive. Likely, after clearing Komar, they'll continue pushing northwest. This is a crucial front sector, as Ukraine's defensive lines are near exhaustion. Although new defenses are being built, corruption and slow funding mean they are of poor quality, especially near the Dnipro River, making it easier for the Russian army to penetrate. There are also developing corridors in the new defense lines. One such corridor runs from Velika Novosilka, west of Novopavlivka, north toward Bodanivka, and northwest toward Pavlohrad. This may allow Russian units to slip between Ukrainian defensive lines, and that may be happening right now. Thanks for watching, dear friends. Please subscribe to the channel, hit like, and all the best.